In the year 712, in the state of Gong in central China, a boy was born who would become the greatest poet in Chinese history. His name was Du Fu. He grew up comfortable, educated, full of hope. He could not have known what was coming. He came to Chang'an, the greatest city on earth, to sit the imperial examinations. He failed. He tried again. He failed again. He spent 10 years in Chang'an, poor and overlooked, while lesser men received official positions. He watched the Tang Dynasty at its height, its beauty, its music, its poets, and wrote it all down. The greatest moment of his early life was meeting Li Bai, the most celebrated poet in China. They traveled together for months, drinking wine, writing poems, arguing about philosophy. Du Fu was younger and less famous. He worshipped Li Bai. He wrote more than a dozen poems about him, more than any other subject in his early work. Their friendship was the most celebrated in Chinese literary history. In the year 755, Lu Shan, a powerful general, rebelled against the Tang Emperor. What followed was one of the most devastating wars in Chinese history. Some historians estimate 60 million people died, nearly a third of China's population. Chang'an fell. The emperor fled. The Golden Age was over. Du Fu was captured by rebel forces and held in the occupied capital. While prisoners around him wept or cursed, he looked at the ruined city and wrote, "The nation is broken. Mountains and rivers remain. The city is in spring. Grass and trees grow deep. Moved by the times, flowers make me weep. Grieving separation, birds startle my heart." He eventually escaped and spent years as a refugee, wandering through a country at war, cold, sick, watching his children suffer. His youngest son died of starvation while Du Fu was traveling. He wrote, "An official have a fine horse. My child died of hunger. He did not look away." He wrote everything down. What made Du Fu different from other poets was his refusal to write only about beauty and personal feeling. He wrote about hungry soldiers, about refugees with no shoes in the snow, about women whose husbands had been conscripted and never returned. He pointed his brush at what others looked away from. His poetry is the newspaper of the Tang Dynasty. His poem Ascending, written on the Double Ninth Festival while sick and far from home, is considered the greatest regulated verse in Chinese literary history. Wind sharp, sky high, apes crying mournfully, islet clear, sand white, birds flying in circles. Boundless falling leaves rustle down and down. The endless Yangtze rolls and rolls away. 10,000 miles from home, I'm always a stranger. In sorrow and sickness, I have climbed this tower alone. He was separated from his wife for years during the war. He wrote to her from a distance. Tonight, far away in Fuzhou, she watches the moon alone. I think of my young children, too young to understand why their father is gone. Her fragrant hair is damp in the mist, her white arms cold in the moonlight. When shall we lean together at the empty window, watching the moon? When will it dry our tears? He wrote about what official poetry ignored, the common people in war. Behind the vermilion gates, wine and meat go to waste. On the road, there are bones of men frozen to death. He understood that poetry was not decoration. It was a form of witness, a form of justice. He held the Tang Dynasty accountable in a way no official ever could. In Chengdu, he found a brief peace. A local official helped him build a small thatched cottage beside the Huanhua stream. For 4 years, he lived there with his family. His most productive period, poems about rain, plum blossoms, neighbors, the simple daily life he had never before been able to enjoy. But he never forgot the war. He never forgot what he had seen. In his final years, old and sick, Du Fu traveled east on the Yangtze River, hoping to return to his northern homeland. He never made it. He died on a boat on the river in the year 770, aged 58. His last poems were written just days before his death. He was still looking, still witnessing, still writing. His poem Chunwang, Spring View, written while captured in the fallen city, ends with one of the most devastating images in all of Chinese poetry. War dispatches for 3 months. A letter from home worth 10,000 gold. I scratch my white hair shorter and shorter, so thin it can barely hold a hairpin. He was not dramatizing. He was simply telling the truth. He left behind 1,460 poems, more than any other Tang poet. They were largely ignored during his lifetime. He died in poverty and obscurity. It was only in the centuries after his death that China recognized what it had. Scholars called him the poet sage, the poet with a saint's conscience. His poems became textbooks, prayers, national memory. What Du Fu gave us was not escape. He gave us company in suffering. Every Chinese person who has ever been poor or separated from family or watched something they love destroyed by forces beyond their control, they find themselves in Du Fu. He was not above life. He was inside it, completely, and he wrote every word down. The Yangtze River still flows. The mountains Du Fu described still stand. The city of Chang'an is now called Xi'an. The thatched cottage in Chengdu has been rebuilt and is now a museum. Millions visit it each year. A man who failed the imperial examination twice. A man who died poor and forgotten on a riverboat. The greatest poet China ever produced. The nation is broken. Mountains and rivers remain. Du Fu, China, 712 to 770.